Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia, and welcome back to After the Silence. So, in the last episode, we talked about grief through loss when someone we love dies. And today, we're going to talk about a type of grief that often goes unrecognized, but is just as real: ambiguous grief. This is the kind of grief that doesn't have a clear ending, and because of that, it can feel even harder to process. Ambiguous grief is what we experience when something or someone is no longer what it once was, but it's not fully gone either. It lives in the in between, not fully here, but not fully gone either. And that space, it can feel really heavy. There are two common ways this kind of grief shows up. The first is when someone is physically gone, but emotionally still very present. This could look like a relationship that ended without closure, estrangement, divorce, where the emotional connection still lingers. The second is when someone is physically still here, but emotionally or mentally not the same. This can simply happen with addiction, mental health struggles, dementia, or even deep personality shifts after trauma. In both cases, something meaningful has changed, and yet you're left trying to make sense of what's still there and what isn't. One of the hardest parts of ambiguous grief is that there is no clear permission to grieve. There is no funeral, no defined ending, no moment where people gather around you and say, yes, this is a loss. So instead, you might find yourself questioning your own experience. Is this really grief? Am I even allowed to feel this way? Ambiguous grief can feel like being stuck, feeling confused, or holding on to hope while also feeling loss, wanting clarity, but not getting it. It can feel like your nervous system doesn't know where to land. And I want to share this gently because this is something I've experienced in my own life as well. I've been in spaces where I was navigating the in-between, not fully holding on to what was, and yet not fully stepping into what was next either. And that space held a lot of grief. There have been moments where something ended, but not in a way that felt clean or complete, where a person was no longer in the same role, or the relationship had shifted, but the connection or the memory or the emotional imprint was still there. And that in-between space can feel just as heavy as loss through death. It's just in a different way. So if you've ever felt like you're grieving something, but didn't know if you were allowed to call it grief, this might be what you're experiencing. And I want you to know it is real. It matters. And you don't have to justify it to anyone. With ambiguous grief, the work isn't about finding closure. Because sometimes, frankly, closure doesn't come. The work becomes learning how to live with the unanswered questions, learning how to hold both what was and what is, and allowing both to exist without forcing resolution You are allowed to grieve something that didn't have a clear ending. You are allowed to miss someone who is still alive. You are allowed to feel the loss, even if no one else sees it. And you are allowed to take your time making sense of it. In this space, we're going to continue naming the kinds of grief that often go unspoken. Because when we name it, we create space to move with it. If this episode resonated with you, just know nothing you felt while listening to this was wrong. Thank you.